Modern engines rely on precise fuel delivery and clean airflow, but over time, carbon buildup starts to choke that system. You'll notice it as rough idling, hesitation, reduced power, or poor fuel economy. It's even worse on most direct injection engines because the fuel never washes over the intake valves to keep them clean. Today I'm going to demonstrate a complete fuel injection and air induction service that you can perform at home. Using the two-part BG system, I'll show you how we clean the throttle body and the intake tract and how this process removes carbon deposits from the intake valves and combustion chambers, restoring smooth performance, better efficiency, and cleaner running engine. Let me walk you through exactly how the system works, how to use it safely, what you need to watch out for, and why this is one of the most effective ways to bring a carbon-clogged modern engine back to life. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, there's a lot of carbon buildup that happens in modern engines. The fuel is moving all around through the intake manifold, pushing through the PCV system. We've got carbon moving through there from blow-by gases. There's just a ton of material moving around the intake tract, through the throttle plates, and through the engine itself. And we want to get in there periodically and clean some of that out. So there's a few different ways to administer these chemicals and a few different things we're trying to achieve with them. So today I'm going to focus on an intake air system cleaning. And we're not going to be pushing any chemical through the fuel injectors, although we could. That's a possible thing to do. But from a maintenance standpoint, it's more important that we get all the carbon off the backs of the valves, off of the intake manifold, and the carbon off the throttle plates and the throttle body. I think that's where the focus should be from a maintenance standpoint. Now, if you're running into a drivability problem and you've got some fuel injectors you think are clogged, then we could easily flip this system around a little bit and connect to the fuel rail on the fuel system and run the car on the fuel injection cleaner to try to remove any deposits from the fuel injectors themselves, whether it be internal or in the pintle valve itself. We can do that as well, but I want to focus on something that's just a little bit easier to perform, something you can do at home, and something more from what I would consider a maintenance standpoint versus trying to cure a problem, okay? Let's talk about what we've got here. We've got this BG products behind me. Now these are designed specifically for this purpose that we're talking about today. This is for intake valve and combustion chamber cleaner, and then we've got a fuel system cleaner that goes in the tank. And what's nice about this is if you're doing this on a regular interval, and I would probably recommend this, especially if you have a direct fuel injection system, not more than, don't go longer than 30,000 miles. I think if you're doing this service every 30,000 miles as part of your maintenance routine where you're doing a major service and you're changing fluids, this is a great idea to do that from a maintenance standpoint. So in addition to this giant bottle cleaner here, we have a smaller bottle. This goes inside the fuel tank. So just go ahead and get a funnel and you can pour that right in the gas tank. And then this cleaner, we're going to run through this little tank here. Now, what's nice about this system, this tool in particular, it's an inexpensive tool you can get from Amazon. I'll put a link up for you too. You can use just about anything. But this has the flexibility to be used a couple of different ways. I'm going to demonstrate that in this video. But what we're really primarily trying to do is get those throttle plates clean, throttle body clean, get the intake system clean, get the backs of the valves clean, and get the combustion chamber clean. And this will accomplish all of that by administering it through the intake system. Okay, let's get into this. The first step I like to do is obviously begin with an inspection. Now we've inspected this car and we've noticed a couple of things on here, and they're not really part of this video as much as they are a common problem. One thing, we've got a dirty air filter. If you're going to be doing an intake cleaning system, please put a new air filter in. It doesn't make sense to reinstall the old air filter if it's looking like this one where it's got debris wedged in all the pleats. This one also has a seal on it that's defective. This is all pinched and rolled over and allowing air to bypass the filter, so we don't want that to happen. So this will get discarded and we can put a new one in. I also wanted to mention in here that we've got a filthy air box. Now you can see the air duct comes in through here up underneath into the bottom of this air filter, but we've got all kinds of debris and things in here. This is something I've talked about in my most common air filter mistakes that I see all the time. One is the rolled over seal on the air filter. Another one is all the debris that we have in the air box itself that needs to get cleaned out. And then that brings me to another point here that I want to show you. This car's got a multitude of things going on that I don't like. And this is it right here. So this little baby will cause a ton of problems. We see them all the time. And this just happens to be another example of a car that landed on our doorstep because of it. So I want you guys to be really careful. We have to access the throttle body on here in order to clean it out. Now I like to do that by hand with a rag. I want to make sure that we're getting all the crud out around the valve, the back of the throttle plate, and all those things. We're going to demonstrate that in a second. But what happens when people change their air filter is they're constantly tugging on this air box lid right here. And they're prying on it like this to try to get the air filter out without taking anything apart. And a lot of times what will happen is you'll end up with an air duct that does this and it starts talking to you. Now the real problem with this, besides the fact that you've got unfiltered air going in there, is that you also have unmetered air. So there's a mass airflow sensor right here on the air box. And you can see that on the inside here. And that's designed to measure the air coming in through here, through this intake duct, and into the engine. Well, what happens is when we have a crack over here, is this air that's coming in here is not going past the sensor. And now the sensor doesn't know that we've got that extra air in there, and the car starts to run incorrectly. It's not getting enough fuel most of the time, right? So it starts to run lean, and then we'll see some hesitations and things from that alone. Idle problems, stalling, all kinds of things can happen just from this little guy being ripped right here. So sometimes you think to yourself, well, it's just duct work, who cares, right? But this is super critical for your car, its performance and its longevity if you're trying to keep the engine clean and all the debris out of it, okay? So we're going to be putting another one on here we've got already. We'll install that back in the system when we put it back together. We're going to clean the air box out. We'll put a new air filter in with a good seal on it and one that's clean. But let's get right to the meat of what we're here for. Now that I mentioned that, we're going to start cleaning the throttle plates on here. Let me show you how we accomplish that. I want to get started here by showing you how I clean the throttle body on there. Now I don't like to spray any chemicals directly inside the throttle plates. I feel like you have an opportunity to do some harm to the engine by spraying liquid in there. So I think it's better off if we just spray some on a rag. I'm using this throttle body and intake cleaner here from BG. It's another product they have. Spray some on a rag, and then we're going to start just by wiping in and around the throttle plate, okay? Now, as you work in here, you're going to start removing a bunch of buildup. It's going to get thick. So just take your rag, rotate it around to a clean spot, spray some more cleaner, and keep working it until you get all the stuff out of here. Now, one thing I find you have to do here is just get your fingers in there a lot of times and hold the throttle plates open. If you have a vehicle with throttle linkage on it, you could just open the throttle linkage as well. Now, I'm getting in here deep past the throttle plates. There's a smooth surface in there, and you want to get that smooth surface entirely clean. Do the same thing above and below the throttle plates. You might have to flip your hand over and hold the throttle plates open. This particular car has a electronic throttle body on it, so it's an electric motor that controls the throttle plates in there. So we kind of have to use two hands in here to do this. Okay. Then you want to clean the edges of the throttle plate as well. And if you can reach the back side of the throttle plate itself and get some of the buildup off of that, that's good as well. So just get it as clean as you can right now. The process we're going to use is going to do a little bit finer job of cleaning this up, but we don't want to leave all the work to our cleaner here to clean the throttle plates. This is probably one of the main causes of idle quality issues and stalling. Now that I've got this air filter out, I also noticed another problem. You can see down here that there's two clips that hold this air filter closest to the engine. There's little tabs that go in underneath a slotted bracket, and one of the brackets is broken off of this side. So that creates an opportunity to not have a tight seal on the air box, and probably another one of my most common problems I see with air filter installations is people breaking the tabs and leaving the clips off, okay? If we're going to have a good seal around the air filter, we need to have all the clips in place and all the brackets in place. The next thing I'm going to do on here, I want to clean this air box out. You can see all of this debris in here. There's actually garbage and stuff in here. We need to get that vacuumed out, and then we're going to wipe all this out. We'll put the new air filter in, and then we can start the rest of the process on here. I'll take my rag here and see if we can clean up the rest of this just a bit. Get some of this stuff that's lingering off the surface of the air box. I never really understood why people put brand new air filters in cars and they keep putting it on top of the same old collection of debris that's been in there for years. So If you guys are doing your own air filters, hopefully you'll start cleaning out your own air box. We're going in with the new air filter. The seal is intact. And then I also want to put on the new air intake duct that we have. All right, we're going to go back in here with this new air intake duct. We'll tighten that up here. Now what I want to do, we're going to loosely put this in place because I want to show you how we install our tool here to administer the cleaner into the intake system. So on this canister, we're going to fill it with liquid, and I've got installed on here. This comes with several different tips on it. We can use it, I told you, two ways. One, we can push the liquid that's in here pressurized through the intake system, or we can push it pressurized through the fuel injection system, through the fuel rail and the fuel injector. So we're not doing that in this process. That's a video for a different day. But what we are going to do is I've got an atomizing nozzle on here, and what that allows us to do is to spray, almost like a fuel injector would, to spray what's in this container inside the intake manifold. And that helps just atomize it a bit because we don't want a lot of liquid going inside the intake. Okay, as it is right now, we're going to be running this car and we're going to be adding additional fuel, which is going to richen the mixture up. Now that's okay in itself for a short period of time. We're going to be cleaning that intake out anyway. We'll bring the RPMs up to help that system work a little bit better. But what we don't want, and this is one of the pitfalls of doing a system like this where you're running an additional liquid in through the intake, is that we don't want any liquid fuel to go down into the intake, okay? So if you're getting an excessive amount of liquid, you have an opportunity to get that liquid inside a cylinder where it can't be compressed, okay? Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna hydrolock the engine. That's basically when we have too much liquid in a cylinder, the cylinder can't compress it, and then you end up bending a rod, okay? We don't want to bend a rod. It requires an engine replacement, basically. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this atomizing tip. We're going to fish this little end in through this little hose here, and then we're going to let it spray into the intake manifold, okay? That's how the process works. So what I want to do, though, I want to pressurize a little bit. I want to show you what this atomizing adapter looks like and what the spray looks like. You can see how fine it is. Let's do that. So I've got some liquid in here, in the canister here. You can pour it in through the top. I've connected the shop air to it, and then I've reduced the pressure down a little bit. So we've got this thing set just under 30 PSI or so. I don't even think we need that much on here, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you what this spray looks like. I hope we can catch this on camera. I want to give you an idea. I'm going to grab a little bucket to spray this into. So if you can watch here, the tip of the nozzle, I'm just going to allow this thing to spray a little. I'm just going to crack this valve open and let it start spraying some stuff, okay? So you can see here, it's doing a fair job of atomizing this mixture. Now it's still very wet, so you have to be careful, like we talked about before, that we don't introduce too much liquid in. We want to feed this in slowly. We want to let the chemical work. If the process takes a little while, you could run this car for 20 minutes on a very fine spray here and go through that whole container on this intake. We want to let it do its job. We don't need to force feed it. If I crank this thing open, you can see how much more starts to go, okay? We don't need all that necessarily. So I'm just going to go in here. When we're ready to turn this on, I'm just going to crack it open barely 1/8 of a turn, and we're going to let this thing spray a fine mist inside the intake. So we're going to pull the top off of this, and then we're just going to add this fluid to this canister. All right. Put our cap back on top. And now we're going to take the other end of this and we're going to tuck it inside this air intake duct. That's what this is designed for. It's supposed to loop around and go underneath here. And that's what we want to do. But we're going to try to get this air box back in. Now it's okay if it doesn't install all the way. We're just going to do this while we're running the cleaner through here. So I'm going to try to push this in. Okay, and then I'm going to put this clamp on loosely, just kind of hold everything steady while we administer the cleaner on here. I don't want to over tighten it. I don't want to rip our new boot or anything. I just want to just hold it steady, and then we're going to plug our mass airflow sensor back in. And we're going to be ready to roll here. Let's go ahead and put our air back on. Okay. And we'll start the car. Now, before we get started, I want to warn you, this process gets a little smoky. You shouldn't be doing this inside your building. We've got the tailpipes out the back. We've got plenty of fresh air in here. Everything's going outside. And don't do this in your garage or anywhere near other people. Keep your other cars away from it. It's going to create a bit of a cloud in the back sometimes. So just go ahead and run the cleaner through. I'm just going to crack this thing open. Like we talked about before, not even an eighth of a turn. I just want to start administering this material in. It's going through the intake, into the throttle body, past the throttle plates, and it's going to clean the entire intake out. Okay? And what you can do over here, while this is running, you can bring the RPMs up a bit. Now, if you've left your air box loose, you might be able to actually look in here and see this spraying. I've got a nice fine mist going there into the air intake duct, and we're just going to let this run a bit. All right, once you've run your container empty, it's just time to button up everything that you took apart. So remove your tool from the air intake duct. We're going to go ahead and put back on our clamp here. Make sure everything's lined up. Any hose clamps off. Make sure your air cleaner is clipped back in place. Reroute all your cables for your sensors back in the spots they go. And then the last thing that we'll want to do here is clear the codes on it. So generally when you're running a system like this, because we're adding extra fuel, we've got air leaks at the, after the mass airflow sensor, it's possible to set some codes. We want to go ahead and clear all those codes out of the memory. So if you have a generic scan tool, you can go in there and just clear the memory history on that, and then give her a road test. Okay, so keep in mind when you drive this, you might still get a little bit of smoke. It takes a little time to clear some of this stuff out. This cleaner is building up in certain pockets within the engine and builds up in the exhaust a little bit. Even though we're administering it at a fine rate, it's still possible for some accumulation in there. Go ahead and give it a road test and make sure you clear it all out, and then you should be all set to go. So a couple things I wanted to mention. I see a lot of content out there about cleaning the valves with the walnut shells and glass beading and all these other things. Now, those are all great to do. They're just not easy to administer. It's not a do-it-yourself project at home generally. And there's a lot of things that need to be disassembled, taken apart for you to access the backs of the valves. And you also have to be really careful we don't get any of that material, any of that media that you're using to blast the valves with should not get inside the cylinders, and it's got to get cleaned out thoroughly. So this is not something I would generally recommend for a do-it-yourselfer. It's certainly not something we even do in the shop here. It's a lot of work. It's very extensive to get it all that, especially on an engine like this where you've got two cylinder heads, a V-style, and no room in there to work. It's not easy to pull the exhaust manifolds off and those types of things. So it's just a very complicated, labor-intense job. If you're going to do something like that, you're better off just pull the engine apart, take the cylinder heads off, send them to your local machine shop. They'll do a thorough disassembly, cleaning on it for you, go through it, make sure the valves are adjusted properly, all those things, put it back together, and you can start fresh again if you want to go that in depth. This is more, like I told you earlier in the beginning of the video, this is more of a maintenance process, okay? We're not necessarily trying to fix any problems with it. We're just trying to keep everything clean, okay? So not to say it won't fix problems. I told you if you have idle control problems, that the throttle body service will generally help that. And in addition to that, cleaning all that carbon out of the intake is going to make it run better, okay? We've had some cars that we've been able to correct with this, especially the direct injection cars. This BG product is really good if you can get your hands on it. If you can't, there's always alternatives. I really like Seafoam. They make a great product. It works very well. And there's some other cleaners out there you might like. I know I've had some of the readers comment to me that they like Techron by Chevron, and I think that's a great product as well. We certainly use that from time to time. It's great to put one of those in the tank, maybe once or twice a year. But if you're using this product, don't use that on top of it, because we still have yet to put this inside the gas tank. This is going to run through the fuel system, so it'll go through the pump, through the fuel lines, through the fuel rail, through the fuel injectors. It'll help clean those pintle valves on the fuel injectors, and it'll also spray into the cylinders. So this is like a secondary step to what we've done on the intake side, on the air intake side. So again, we're not doing any cleaning of the fuel injectors other than putting this product in the fuel tank. Okay, and this certainly does help from a maintenance standpoint. Guys, I want to mention one thing while you're performing this service, I should say after you're performing this service. There are certain cars out there that require an idle relearn procedure. And I can think specifically of a couple of examples, Nissan Infiniti products especially, where you need a scan tool to effectively do that, especially after you've cleaned the throttle plates out. What you've done essentially is you've allowed the car to idle higher because you've removed the restriction around the throttle plates. Now it can flow more air past the throttle plates, which in turn raises the idle. So this is one of the things you might commonly see. Now, a lot of the cars that we work on, a lot of the cars that you guys own, just a normal road test will generally bring the idle back down slowly. The computer will relearn that on its own. There are some cars that have specific procedures, like I've mentioned here with the Nissan and Infiniti products especially. So if you're driving one of those cars, use some caution on there. If you don't have a scan tool to relearn the idle, reset that, you're going to have a little bit of an issue with a high idle. The engine will be racing and stuff, and you might have to take it to a service center to get that taken care of. So I want to give you that caveat before you get into a service like this, especially cleaning the throttle plates. I'm going to leave some links to these products in the description. They'll be on our Amazon storefront, and if you want to use any of these things, you can go check them out. Put a link to this tool in there as well, or something similar to it that works the same. This way you have access to some of these tools if you want to try this yourself. Just keep in mind some of the things I told you. Don't administer any liquid into the engine if you can avoid it, and if you do, you better go super slow. I'm talking about at a drip speed. You don't want to have any problems where you lock up the engine. That's a big no-no, and I just want to make sure you guys are safe out there. You're not doing any damage to your car. We're trying to fix them here and not break them. So appreciate you following along. I hope you guys enjoy this type of content. Just wanted to remind you to leave us some comments down below. We'd like to hear from you. Leave us some notes. Tell us what you're thinking, what kind of stuff you like to see. We read all that stuff. We're going to give back to you on some of that stuff. If you've got questions, we're happy to answer some of those things. So go ahead and communicate with us. We're pretty open. And make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, please. It helps our channel grow. And we'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to check out another one. We got more coming for you right here.